So here's a question for you. What does it really mean to not just believe something, but to actually live it out, like every single day?
Yeah.
How do those deep convictions we hold shape how we, navigate the world, how we interact with people, how we respond when things get tough?
That's a great starting point.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that, looking at this idea of walking in unity from the New Testament, specifically Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 to 6.
Right. And it's important to say, while we're drawing heavily from Christian scripture today, the ideas we're unpacking, things like humility, patience, real connection, these are relevant for anyone, really, regardless of background, who wants stronger relationships or, well, just a more harmonious life.
Absolutely. Our main source is this document, walkinginunity.pdf. It's got notes from a discussion at CMBC, that's Colorado Mountain Bible College, back on June 29, 2025.
Interesting stuff in there.
Yeah. And our goal, our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack what this walk means, what unified actually looks like in practice, and find those specific qualities that can help you live this out. It's about bridging the gap between belief and, well, daily action.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, what the source material really nails, is this tight link between understanding and doing. Ephesians chapters 1 to 3, they lay out all this foundational teaching about God, salvation, being united with Christ.
A big picture stuff.
Exactly, the doctrine. But then chapters 4 to 6, which is our focus, it shifts gears. It's all about the walk. How do you actually live out those truths? The document puts it bluntly. Biblical knowledge, chapters 1 to 3, causes biblical walk.
Knowledge fuels action.
Precisely. It's not just head knowledge. It has to translate into, how your feet hit the pavement every day.
Okay, so let's dig into that walk. The source makes a really clear distinction, doesn't it, between how believers and unbelievers can walk.
It does. It basically says that someone who isn't a believer, well, they lack the specific grace and power a Christian receives. So they can't really walk in a way that fully glorifies God, according to this perspective.
It points to several verses in Ephesians to back that up, right? Highlighting this divine enablement.
Yeah, verses about grace and power given to believers, which kind of begs the question.
What is this grace and power?
Exactly. The document defines them pretty powerfully. Grace is God giving you what you don't deserve.
Okay.
And mercy is not giving you what you deserve. Simple, but profound.
And there's that metaphor, too.
Oh, yeah, the wings metaphor. Grace and mercy are Christians' wings to soar higher to heaven. It even links it to Isaiah 40.31 about rising up on wings like eagles. It's quite poetic, really.
It is. But thinking about grace as wings, how does that actually help someone, practically speaking, when they're facing a tough situation? Either when they feel like they just don't have what it takes?
That's a key question. Because grace can sound abstract, right? Theological. Yeah. But the source sees it as active. It explains that this word walk in the Bible, it doesn't just mean strolling around. It signifies, well, the whole round of activities in your life. Everything. Everything. Whether you're what the text calls unregenerate, not yet spiritually transformed, or a believer, it covers religious observances, sure, but also just your basic moral conduct. Day in, day out, the whole package.
So it's not just Sunday morning, it's Monday morning, too.
Exactly. And the material then lays out how a Christian should walk, and maybe just as importantly, how not to walk.
Like a roadmap.
Sort of. Positively, it talks about walking in newness of life, from Romans 6, or after the Spirit from Romans 8.
Okay.
And negatively, it warns against walking after the flesh, which is contrasted right there in Romans 8, or not after the manner of men, not in craftiness, not in the vanity of the mind, drawing from Corinthians and Ephesians.
So avoiding those negative patterns.
Right. And it uses that idea of a straight path from Galatians. Like, your life should leave a clear track for others to follow, not a confusing, winding one. It shows that how we live is, well, it's a public statement.
And this call to walk a certain way, it comes straight from the Apostle Paul in Ephesians 4, right? He beseeches them.
Yeah, beseeches, it's a strong word, like an urgent plea. He's asking the Ephesian believers, and by extension, us, to live in a way that's worthy, that reflects their calling.
And that calling includes being part of God's church, and specifically showing it through unity.
Exactly, a walk of unity. But here's the crucial part, the absolute prerequisite according to the source.
Which is?
No true unity will exist without the truth. Those foundational teachings in chapters 1 through 3, they're not optional extras. They're presented as all God's graces for all true Christians.
So unity isn't just about agreeing to get along. It needs a shared foundation.
Precisely. It has to be grounded in that shared fundamental truth. Otherwise, any unity is just, well, it's fragile, skin deep.
Okay, that makes sense. So, with that truth as the foundation, The document then dives into 7 specific characteristics that define this unified walk. Let's unpack these. First up, lowliness or humility.
Right, lowliness of mind. The source uses a definition from Warren Wiersbe, a commentator it cites, which I think is really helpful. Putting Christ first, others second, and self last.
Thinking of yourself less, not thinking less of yourself.
Exactly. It's about knowing yourself properly, seeing yourself clearly in the eyes of the Lord, recognizing you're a sinner, undeserving of grace, and not thinking yourself highly.
So it's not false modesty, but accurate self-assessment.
Right. Seeing yourself accurately in light of God, and that automatically creates space for others, doesn't it, when your ego isn't taking up all the room?
Okay, second characteristic, meekness or gentleness. The source calls this power and strength under control.
Yeah, that's key. It's not weakness, it's controlled strength. The source gives examples like Moses described as meek, but obviously a powerful leader and prophet.
And Jesus himself.
And Jesus, yes. Meek and lowly, yet also mighty God and man. The analogies used are helpful too. A soothing medicine, a colt that had been broken, and a soft wind. All have power, but it's contained, controlled.
Like a trained animal versus a wild one.
Good analogy. It's linked to self-control. And Christians are urged to show this all meekness toward all men. It makes you think, doesn't it, about those moments someone cuts you off, a deadline's crushing you, and your first reaction is often, well, not meekness.
Definitely not. It's a real challenge.
Right.
Okay, number 3, long-suffering or being long-tempered.
This one's about self-restraint in the face of provocation. Basically, not snapping back immediately, not retaliating or rushing to punish when someone frustrates you or pushes your buttons.
Taking that breath, that inner pause.
Exactly. It's described as the opposite of anger, and it's linked closely with mercy. And really significantly, it's a quality used to describe God himself in the Old Testament and in Romans.
Wow, so it's a divine quality we're called to reflect.
That's the idea. It's the capacity to bear with difficult people without losing your own inner peace.
Which leads nicely into the 4th point, forbearance and patience. The source notes they're almost synonymous with long-suffering, but breaks them down a bit.
Yeah, just for clarity, patience, as presented here, is more about handling tough situations, adverse or unfavorable things. It's the quality that stops you giving up under trial. It's the opposite of despair and linked to hope.
Okay, so patience is about circumstances.
Right. Whereas long-suffering, as we just discussed, is specifically about dealing with difficult people, antagonistic persons, the source calls them, those who actively oppose or provoke you.
So patience, tough times, long-suffering, tough people.
Kind of, yeah. But the core idea for both is to hold up, to endure without crumbling, whether the pressure comes from circumstances or from other people.
Got it. Number 5 is love. Feels like this should be central.
Absolutely central. The source says flat out that forbearance can't be exercised without love. It even quotes 1 Corinthians 13.4, love suffereth long and is kind. Love is patient, love endures.
So is love just the starting point, the prerequisite? Or does practicing these other things like forbearance and patience actually help our love grow?
That's a really good question. And I think the material, especially drawing on Wiersbe, suggests it's both. Love gives you the why and the how, the motivation and the capacity for these tough virtues.
Okay.
But actually doing them, choosing meekness when you want to explode, choosing long-suffering when you're provoked, that action stretches and deepens your capacity to love. It's like a cycle. Wiersbe connects it to walking, and the spirit unity comes from that walk. It's dynamic.
A positive feedback loop. Makes sense. Okay. Number 6, endeavoring. This sounds active.
Very active. It means to make haste, to be zealous, and hence to be diligent. It's not passive acceptance. It's actively working towards unity.
When you say endeavoring, it sounds like constant effort. Is it okay to, take a break from pursuing unity, or is this a 2-4-7 thing?
The source definitely implies it's constant. It talks about desiring, inquiring, seeking unity in the spirit at all times and in all situations. And it states, we must constantly be endeavoring to maintain this unity.
No days off.
Apparently not. Wiersbe adds that the unity of any group, family, class, church is everyone's responsibility, and the job never ends. Unity isn't something you achieve and then coast. It needs constant attention.
Wow. Okay, finally, number 7, peace. And the source makes a really striking connection here.
Yeah, the reason for war on the outside is war on the inside, referencing James chapter 4.
So conflict between people stems from inner conflict.
That's the implication. It raises this challenging point. If a believer cannot get along with God, he cannot get along with other believers. It ties our inner state, our peace with God, directly to our ability to have peace with others.
So internal peace is the foundation for external peace.
Exactly. If things aren't right vertically with God, they likely won't be right horizontally with other people. That inner alignment is critical for any real, lasting unity.
So bringing this all together, what does this mean for you listening right now? This whole deep dive into walking in unity. It shows it's not just some nice idea. It's a really active, ongoing way of life, a journey.
It really is. And the document finishes with this pointed question from the Old Testament prophet Amos. Can two walk together except they be agreed? Then it turns it directly to you, the listener.
Asking you to reflect.
Yeah, asking, do you really agree you're rich in Christ Jesus, that you're God's own and treasure, that you belong to him through his church? And if so, that you should walk in unity with fellow believers.
It's a call to consistency. If you believe the first part's, the last part follows.
Right, and it hammers home again that this walk only happens through these 7 qualities: lowliness, meekness, long-suffering, forbearance, love, endeavoring, and peace.
And then that final call to action.
It's my duty. It's your duty. For Christ and Christ alone. Very direct.
So maybe something to think about as we wrap up.
Yeah, consider this. How could focusing on just one of these 7 qualities this week, maybe lowliness, maybe patience, maybe just actively endeavoring for peace, how could that change a relationship you're in or community you're part of?
What's one small step you could take, maybe even tomorrow, to live out this walk in unity a bit more?
And what difference might that single step make? It's worth pondering.